What is going on, everyone? My name is Mark. I go by the Joyful Mind. It is 4:05 p.m. Friday, October 21st. Time for Game Bites. Hope everyone's having a good one. We're going to dive into the biggest news items of the week in the world of gaming. This podcast you will be able to find everywhere where podcasts are at least the main places. So Spotify, Apple, and all those good places. And every single time we go live, we also upload the VOD to YouTube as well. Before I get started, I do want to say we are running a contest from today to November 18th, 9 p.m. Eastern time. If you're here in Twitch watching live, that is exclamation contest, giving away a copy of Pokemon Violet and or Scarlet to 2 lucky winners. Also, if you're watching the VOD on YouTube, you'll be able to see it down below in the link. And if you're listening to this on Apple or Spotify, the link will be in there along with the episode for the entire month. That being said, what's going on in the world of gaming? Well, this week we had some new releases I'm very excited for. One, Mario Rabbids. Obviously, that was last month's contest. We gave away our winners today. We didn't give our winners away. We announced the winners for the contest today. I'm going to be getting a quick review up of that game at some point this weekend, hopefully. Really excited about that. Excuse me. And hoping to spend some good time because I really love the first one. So I got an email from work coming in out. Made me worried that something was wrong, but everything's good. Other big releases, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. If you were a person who pre-ordered the game, the campaign is now available for you, whether you're on Steam, PlayStation, all that good stuff. Gonna probably check that out soon as well. And then Arkham Knights also releasing today. I see a lot of people playing it on Twitch. I see a lot of articles about it, whether it's good, bad. People have leading a certain way, but that is kind of a good transition point for what I want to talk about for our first big news item for the week. So Gotham Knights, Arkham Knights, what's going on there? The main big news item that came out about this, about a few months ago, they announced that, probably about 4 or 5 months ago, they announced that Gotham Knights would not be releasing on legacy platforms. So we're talking PlayStation 4, Xbox One, any of the past generation platforms. People felt, oh, this is good news. This might mean that we get a game that's truly optimized for current gen systems only. And we're going to leave all those old rusty technology bins in the past. Well, about a week and a half ago, it came out that Gotham Knights is only going to be running at 30 frames per second, which pretty much put the internet in storm. What's going on? We're getting this for a PlayStation 5, a Series X only, my new PC. Why am I only going to be able to play this at 30 frames per second? A lot of people talking about why, conjecture around, well, it's going to be 4K HDR focused. That's going to be heavy on the hardware and so forth. But most of these games, no matter what anymore, launch with either a performance mode or a quality mode. So you kind of can have the best of both worlds depending on how you like to play. Typically, quality mode launches you into that 4K high fidelity, high HDR experience with a slower frame rate to maintain the integrity of the gameplay. While if you go for the performance mode, you can go anywhere up to 120 frames per second and truly unleash pure chaos onto your television or monitor screen, while you might only be at 2K resolution or 1080p and so forth. It's a good balance, and I really like how game makers have reached that place when it comes to the current environment of video games in general. That being said, there's a lot of conjecture on what actually might be going on, right? My understanding is this. When you look at a lot of major game makers, AAA companies in the last so many years, a lot of the time they make decisions specifically based on financial interest in some way, first and foremost, in terms of when they go about doing things. A game might not be in the best state, but they're going to launch it. Look at Cyberpunk. Cyberpunk is getting a little bit of a renaissance. The game's been patched for almost a year and a half, almost 2 years now, and people are really coming to shine upon it. Similar things happened with Witcher 3 back in the past too. Not a lot of people might remember that, but Witcher 3 launched in a bad state compared to what it was supposed to look like, right? And I think ultimately, No Man's Sky is another good one. KMX in the chat, great point. Another good one where companies that have a lot of money behind these projects are going to say, we need to release now. We don't care about the PR. We can take the PR. I wonder if that whole any PR is good PR mentality comes into play. The reality is most people aren't going to be swayed by this. We need to make that money. And we need to boost quarterly gains for various financial reasons. And there's a lot of legal reasons around it too. I mean, companies have fiduciary responsibilities to maximize profits. So, and the myopic ridden landscape of American corporatism, you tend to see decisions go along that short-term perspective. So I say that to say, I won't be surprised in about 6 months or less, you see a performance patch updated to Gotham Knights that changes how the game's experienced, right? Where you have a performance mode where you could do 60 frames per second or more, or 120 frames per second, and if you're on Series X or PS5. I haven't picked it up yet for PC. I plan on doing that to see what I can do on the PC with a 3090 GPU. But again, I say that to say that, like, not surprised about the situation right now, not surprised about a company pushing out when it's not ready. But all that aside, there has been some interesting dialogue around this situation, specifically when it comes to indie game makers in general, and how Microsoft has launched their next-gen console. So I say over at VGC, there's an article, developer claims many studios are asking Xbox to drop the mandatory Series S compatibility for anyone releasing a game on the Xbox platform. Now, this actually started with the podcast I listened to, Jeff Gerstmann's show. Jeff Gerstmann, the fame from Giant Bomb, GameSpot. Love his podcast. A lot of the great stuff he does inspired me. In fact, Giant Bomb is the reason why I wanted to start a video game company back in 2017 or so. I was like, I could do this. So all that aside, he was talking about how on Twitter there was some developers who did not work on Gotham Knights, conjecturing that this is the reason why this happened is because anytime you want to release a game on the Series X, it has to do with the fact that you have to release it on the Series S as well. And maybe that's true. In fact, that is true. But the reason why they were limiting Gotham Knights is because of the nightmare in development around that. Now, Jeff pushed back, and this is the same pushback I would say too, which is, well, if you're releasing a game on PC, you already have to take in scope all of the variability you're going to have in the PC world. Not everyone's going to be on a 4090, a 3090, or the 2000 series as well. You're going to have people playing on all kinds of different performance specs, and you need to accommodate that with how you build a game. And truth be told, in a lot of these game engines, Unity, Unreal, you can accommodate that. You need to test it, and that adds time and bandwidth, but you can accommodate it. So Jeff pushed back at that way. Well, more people are now kind of bringing up what I would call a almost non sequitur related console war perspective, where they're over on VGC, they're talking about the fact that, you know what, no, it really does come down to, for the past year plus, a lot of indie developers and other developers have been in meetings with Microsoft trying to get around this whole Series S mandatory release. And again, this article is over on VGC. I don't know really what to think about it, because personally, as someone that works in game development, I don't know if I buy it completely. Like, I know that it's not easier to release games across multiple spectrums, but if you're accommodating things from a PC perspective and you're releasing on console, you can build out a team that accommodates the Series S, Series X release challenges. And the only thing I'm going to bring up to go against this, and again, this is a different studio and this is on one console alone, but I did just see today that God of War Ragnarok, again, coming out in a month or so, releasing on both the PS5 and the PS4, is going to be releasing with performance and quality mode upwards of 120 frames per second if you're on the PS5, probably down to 30 frames per second if you're on the PS4. So a major game launching on two different platforms, albeit 3-4 less platforms less than Gotham Knights, is still achieving that diversity and experience overall. So I don't know. Is it easier to develop across multiple platforms and accommodate for those performance specs differences? No. Is it the reason to justify why this is happening with Gotham Knights? No. So to me, again, I go back to what I said originally. I truly do think this comes down to internal production and internal intervention by a larger product head or business head pushing for it to come out before the holiday. Because guess what? Games sell on holidays. Parents are going to walk into a GameStop, if there are any left, and they're going to say, "Ooh, Batman game. My kids love Batman." And they're going to pick that up for Christmas. To that point, maybe you see the patch before Christmas and this dies down. Maybe they said we have to go anyways because it wouldn't have been ready until after the holiday schedule. But a game of this nature that's going to have almost like a commodity-like appeal to people who are just buying games for cousins or nephews or kids themselves, They're gonna want to get this out on the shelf right away. Am I saying that's okay? No, I'm not. I'm just saying the business factor beside it is probably what drove Gotham Knights to come out this time, and it had less to do with the development challenges of releasing the game across all these platforms. While that's a factor once you decide to release it on PC too. So I'll leave it at that. I'm curious what everyone has to think about that. If you're live, let me know what your thoughts are in chat. Let me know what your thoughts are on YouTube as well. All that being aside, that's one of the bigger events that have happened. I'm still looking forward to getting it. And I've been trying to avoid review scores on it because I do think whether we realize it or not, there does tend to be a bias that affects perspective related to certain things like this. About the review scores. KMX in the chat, I miss back when games were released complete. I don't think... So games are downstream from software in general. Software being anything that enterprise companies in general, or you, the average person using word processor, used on a computer. And the second we went to more of a software as a service approach, and we went to a situation where your patches are going to come over the internet for all your software, you're not buying a Microsoft Office disk anymore to update it every single time. Games are going to take that model too because they're running on a similar enterprise infrastructure, right? The backbone of those industries have a lot of labor parts that are correlated too. So it makes sense to me that we now see games taking the approach of we want to launch with a minimal viable product. I'm not saying this is okay, by the way. In fact, you can do this without butchering the launches like this at all. I'm just stating the landscape of how the industry is looking. Where games are going to take that philosophy of, we're going to release our core product. This is the minimal thing we need to get out there. In the case of Gotham Knights, in the case of No Man's Sky, in the case of Cyberpunk, I think that was beyond minimal. I think that was below minimal. That was not even the minimal what you needed to do. Those games released broken. That's not okay. But I say all of that to call out the fact that there's still this philosophy that we're going to release a core game and build onto it moving forward. That's the best way to support these things. That's the best way to support developers and people who are making these games and make money and all that stuff. Yeah, for something like Office, you need a subscription for sure. But the idea that we're running off of what you would call an agile or Scrum-based project methodology, all of that's really influenced everything in the software world. And downstream of that, I would say gaming is naturally there too. So you might not be paying a subscription for a lot of these games, although a lot of games you do now pay a subscription for. Like look at Fortnite. You pay a monthly subscription for that. Battle passes and all that are ways to incorporate that, even though the games are free to play in general. So again, the idea that they're following that model, I still say it comes down to bad project management and bad discussions with leadership behind the business decisions of the team. To say we rushed it, we were too aggressive, our marketing got ahead of our feasibility and timeline, we can't push the teams this much. People work to live, they don't live to work. And when you're making beautiful things like this, I think ultimately you need to give people the space to breathe. And crunch is going to get you out of the situation. So again, all that aside, Gotham Knights, I'm still going to want to try it. I'm trying to ignore the reviews because I don't want to have reviews really upset about the 30 frames per second thing, which is a reason to be upset, skew what the core game can or should be. I want to see the story. I love the Arkham gameplay. I love the Arkham fight style. That being said, if it's truly broken, then that's a problem. So I'll leave it at that. And we'll move on. In other news, Bayonetta 3, another game launching next week. One of the other big holiday releases for 2022-2023. The voice actress for Bayonetta, Helena, I forget her last name right now. Let me look it up. Helena Taylor, I believe, came out about a week ago on Twitter with the video that's now got millions upon millions upon millions upon millions upon millions upon millions upon millions of views. A lot of views. Did I say it was a lot of views? It was a lot of views. And in this video series, she essentially claimed that, hey, I am no longer the lead voice actress for Bayonetta and Bayonetta 3. I have always been the lead actress for Bayonetta and Bayonetta 1 and 2 for the English Anglicanized editions. The reason why I'm not is this. For the third entry into the series, Platinum Games only offered me $4,000 for everything I did, which frankly, at first, hearing sounds abysmal. That sounds freaking terrible. that for all the work that goes into making that voice acting, I would think they would get paid, tens of 20s or 30s of thousands of dollars. I don't know what the actual bare minimum is, but everyone with this little bit of information pretty much got an uproar. Now, me at first, personally, I was kind of like, that sounds so crazy that I'm gonna wait till I hear more, because that is borderline criminal, and I can't imagine a global multinational company operating with those principles. So, all that aside, a few days later, Jason Schreier at Bloomberg came out and basically said, hey, with the investigation from my team, Bloomberg Business Industries, we actually got some documentation from Platinum Games and said, frankly, what Taylor said is not true. The truth of the matter is they offered to pay her $4,000 to $5,000 per session, and she was asked to do 4 to 5 sessions. So realistically, it gets upwards of $15,000. Now, what they did confirm is, from a Platinum perspective, that negotiations broke down because Helena asked for upwards of 6-figure salary, okay? Along with residuals for her performance in the game in perpetuity. Now, for those who don't know, a residual would basically mean, hey, that's my voice in this game. Every single time you sell a copy, I want something from that. As long as this game is being sold anywhere and everywhere, Bayonetta 3 exists. Which, frankly, I think is something that, a voice actor should be entitled to. I think just labor and just wages are things that should be compensated for. And yeah, if your voice is a part of that game every time it sells, you should probably make a portion of it whenever they do that. Okay. Now, some game makers do this, some don't. In fact, a lot don't. From what I understand, if you're in the Screen Actors Guild Union, they have not negotiated a deal yet for voice actors that guarantees residuals for any contract they're on. So it has come out that what Taylor has said is apparently just false, right? I would trust what Bloomberg investigated. I would trust what they did. Still, the fact that Taylor then came back in response and said, no, that's not true. Everything you're reading over there, what Platinum said, is just untrue. Now she's saying she just wants to move on and beyond it. It's tough. It's tough. I heard some good advice from Jeff Grubb, Giant Bomb and Game Mess, which is something I think people could take heed for a lot of things when it comes to the problem of what we understand as news and what really are potentially just rumors. I don't know why I'm putting my hands. They are rumors. Try not to take sides on things. Pace yourself, listen to what comes out from all perspectives, and then try to make a decision then. I think a lot of culture when it comes to media is very reactionary. We have sides, we get entrenched. I just like truth, love, mercy, and justice. And so those are the things that are going to decide how I choose to something. But, we're operating off of information that truly is incomplete. And I think this is a good example of it, because a lot of people got real angry up and about in a hiddle-butt. I just made that word up about what happened with Taylor. And again, it does raise the conversation about a better wage for a voice actor in the industry. But all things aside, it does seem like what Taylor originally said is false. And it's a bummer, because the person that replaced Taylor, a Jennifer Hale, she's very well known in video game voice acting. She was kind of being harassed online over this stuff. And frankly, she probably made more money than Taylor in the short run, because she's a much more sought after commodity in the world of voice acting too. So yeah, we'll see. I know some people here have the game pre-ordered. I am going to do a quick review, quick look at it as well. Hiddlebutt, yeah, you heard it here first. Big old hiddlebutt about nothing. So yeah, the internet, man. What's up with the internet? Hey, how can we fix the internet? Well, that's not what we're going to talk about for the rest of the show today. But speaking of the internet, and maybe talking about how the internet killed the television star, Comcast last Sunday, October 16th in the afternoon, did announce that they are canceling and ending everything with G4 TV. Now, a few episodes ago on Game Bites, we did talk about how really the news media game space is shrinking overall, as just the games industry is shrinking from a lot of inflation and what I would call maybe not non-organic growth induced by the COVID 2020 epidemic. Gosh, I'm way too excited right now. I'm adding decades and thousands of years upon dates. Anyways, How a lot of that resulted in a shrinking of games media everywhere. A lot of people were laid off, which is sad. And there were people laid off at G4 even a few weeks ago too. But some other sites closed down. I think Fanbyte, owned by one of the bigger game maker companies out there, cut a lot of people too. So that's been happening overall. There's been like a shrinkage effect. And again, you don't want to see people lose jobs no matter what. But that being said, G4 TV is now closed. And the way they did this is kind of rough, to say it lightly. People found out that they lost their jobs via Twitter, via articles from like Kotaku and GameSpot and all that stuff. The head of it just sent a letter out on Sunday afternoon, like I said, October 16th, saying, hey, we're pulling the plug. And that was it. Some people were actually going to work on that Sunday, supposedly, and they were basically redirected automatically to go talk to an HR person about getting laid off. So all that aside, what happened? Well, G4, for the most part, online looked like it was successful. If you would probably go to their Twitch page at any point, they had thousands of viewers. And if it was just a small crew, it probably would have been fine. But the thing that happened with G4 is that they kind of still had a traditional business model on top of something that was really only viable on the online digital space. What do I mean by that? Reports say that around 200 plus people were staffed beyond the talent itself to make G4 run, because they were heavily relying on more of a traditional media dependence business revenues. So money from television ads, and all of that. And no one was really watching or engaging with G4 from that perspective. People that were fans of G4 were going to engage with G4 from an online perspective, whether it was VODs on YouTube, whether it was live on Twitch, a lot of the different shows that came out of it. There was content that came out of G4 that people were excited about. So it does show that the internet, again, what are we going to do about the internet, has disrupted things significantly. Obviously, I think the famous economist Paul Kruger once said the internet's not going to do anything. Well, egg in the face. Anyways, Paul Krugman, I forget where he's from. That being said, again, G4 TV was almost destined to fail with this type of setup. No matter what your thoughts are on what happened, and a lot of the conversation and dialogue early on, with that type of model, it just wasn't going to work. It was not going to work with that type of model. It had less to do with anything else. It was the fact that you have 200 people supported. Some people talking about it being personalities. No, it was the business model. The type of attention it was getting online would have been viable if it was just that small team. It was very much the business model. You can't support, 200 plus people's salaried healthcare benefits with a type of gaming media that is now highly competitive online specifically. So that's sad. Again, you don't want to see people lose jobs. You hope the best for people in that situation, no matter who they are. It's just the way it should be. So sad news aside, perhaps the next news article is sad. Perhaps it's exciting, or perhaps it's both exciting and sad. It seems like the UK Competitive Market Authority, so for those that don't know, the UK CMA has been calling out the stops, or at least the slowdowns, on the Activision Microsoft merger within the UK area. Now, most part, almost all major trade and labor acquisition folks have approved this. There have been not many issues with approving the Microsoft Activision merger, but the UK's kind of been saying, hold on, we want to look into this more. So just as a refresher, I think historically the main argument that Sony was making to the UK CMA was something along the lines of, hey, if PlayStation, one of the best games that sells on our system is Call of Duty, and people will then be able to say, hey, I like this, and then get told that, oh, I can go get Call of Duty for free on Microsoft if I just get an Xbox. It would just come with Game Pass. Sony's argument was this is going to majorly impact how people buy their consoles, because again, Call of Duty is one of the best-selling games on PlayStation, which to some degree, I think the argument makes sense. Now, a statement that came out this week to the UK CMA by Microsoft, which is basically trying to diffuse this concern about competitive issues, two things happened. One, Microsoft basically said, based on past agreements between Sony and Activision, that would refrain from Activision releasing Call of Duty on Game Pass Microsoft would still have to abide by said agreement. People have actually seen similar agreements in place with Sony and Capcom to prevent Capcom from putting games on Game Pass as well. And so this would also happen here in this situation. If the merger went through, Microsoft could put anything they wanted on Game Pass from the Activision library, Activision Blizzard library, except Call of Duty. So World of Warcraft, Candy Crush, whatever you want, it could be there. Call of Duty couldn't. There aren't specifics on how long that agreement went, but it is an existing agreement that would not be dissolved if this merger happened and went through. So 5 years, maybe 10 years, less than that, who knows? So that's one statement Microsoft gave to the UK CMA to try to say, hey, yeah, this concern, sure, we hear it, but the reality is that Sony would still make 30% off of all Call of Duty sales. We would make 70% off of, and we would still have to sell the game at full price for the Xbox console as well. It cannot be on Game Pass for console or PC until this agreement dissolves itself. So interesting there, because I still think that part of me goes, if it does go through, how does the breakdown happen in sales for each console? You know, does Call of Duty still end up maybe doing better on Microsoft? Does Call of Duty get co-promotional opportunities that are exclusive to the platform with certain types of DLCs or maps? I don't know. When it comes to Microsoft, Sony still has some of those agreements in place as well. So yeah, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Another thing though, again, because the UK CMA is all about the concerns of the competitive nature of the video game market. Microsoft also announced today that they want to do a mobile gaming store. So they want to compete against the Google mobile phone marketplace and the Apple Store, which is interesting that this announcement comes this week again, because they're being accused of creating a monopoly on competition. And now they're saying, well, hey, with a lot of the software and applications we're getting from this merger, such as King's Candy Crush, we want to use that to create more competition in the mobile gaming storefront, which is interesting. So if we take a step back, if you want to change user behavior significantly on how they interact with certain types of content types, you need to give them a reason. And I'm pretty sure Candy Crush is played by almost everyone. Grandmas, great grandmas, children, nephew, all that stuff. And if you make something like Candy Crush exclusive behind a mobile gaming storefront on Android, then people might actually change how they go about buying mobile games. And something like Call of Duty Mobile would be there as well. Now, there's still the larger question about the Apple Store, right? With the Apple Store, with all that stuff that happened with Epic recently, Microsoft couldn't release its Game Pass cloud features onto the Apple Store. They had to do a very different way about it, where you go through a web browser essentially to use it. But they're trying to make this point that, hey, we could try to shake up the competition nature on the mobile gaming market, which, truth be told, is a major growth sector for video games in general. Maybe not so much in developed countries in the West, but most of the rest of the world play a lot of mobile games. Someone asked in the chat, didn't they already do that with Windows Phone? They did, to a point, to a degree, but I think this is a way that they see how, hardware aside, they could use their software to basically create a viable growth space for them. And they also mentioned in a statement that they would want to do this to basically use the power of games like Candy Crush to develop their own internal capabilities of mobile gaming in general as well. So I find that interesting. I don't know what's going to happen of it. I don't know how much of it is just fodder for the whole thing going on with the UK CMA right now. If they really go through with it, it'd be easy to do that on Google. It'd be challenging to do it on Apple. Does Apple say, hey, Candy Crush, not on the Apple Store? That's insane. We'll open up the Apple Store now to your own payment providers. It's hard to predict, right? Apple's in an interesting place overall, too, as their quality of hardware has gone down and they've tried to focus more on software and service platforms like Apple TV and Apple Arcade, which I don't know the latest on those two, but I can't imagine they're making everything quite all right for Apple with how expensive all their overhead is. So interesting things there. Is the Microsoft Activision deal going to go through? Personally, I think it'd be great for the development teams that are stuck under Activision Blizzard to get better leadership under someone like Phil Spencer and Microsoft Studios. Does that make all the problems go away? No, because personally, I think a lot of the issues you see in Activision Blizzard aren't just corporate specific, but I think they're cultural specific to American culture in general. And I don't think you get rid of those issues just by solving one issue at one corporation. I think you need to take a step back and look around and see what's in our culture that's driving these complicated aspects of how we engage with each other and causing the injustice that we see. It just would make sense if it's an American company that something related to the American culture is perhaps driving some of these issues. But I digress, and I say I hope it works out for the best for everyone. Other news, anyone fan of Sims? Sims 4 just went free to play a few weeks ago, and as a part of that, EA's Lindsay Pearson, vice president of franchise creative for The Sims, has explained that Project Renee is now in the works. So Project Renee, which the Renee is a reference to a Renaissance, which is interesting because Rena and the Renaissance word is a reaching backwards to a degree and also a rebirth at the same time. So I don't know if they intentionally are saying that to say we're actually going to do some things that you used to love and bring it back, but also do something new. Who knows? But not a lot has been said besides the fact that the game is in the works. Sims 5 is in the works. The franchise is being reinvigorated from EA. It's a new big focus for them, and they hope to bring along a lot of lifelong Sims fans and get a lot of new Sims fans as well. So I don't know if that tickles anyone's fancy. Does not do anything for me. But again, a big title, a big franchise, getting news out about that is key. So yeah, Project Renee, keep your ears to the hiddlebutt. You never know what you don't know. No, I'm just speaking gibberish. So yeah, fun news there. And in other gaming news, so two final big items I do want to cover. There were two showcases this week. One related to Silent Hill and another related to Resident Evil. So Silent Hill, a franchise that's kind of been extremely quiet for a while. I can't even remember when the last Silent Hill game came out. I know PT with Kojima was what a lot of people were excited for, but then Kojima left Konami and essentially PT's been unplayable. Yes, they've been silent about Silent Hill, as someone in the chat has said. That being said, this past Wednesday they had a lot of announcements, which again, if anything, I think it sounds like that Konami sees money. And as we talked in last week's episode of Game Bites, Konami's investing heavily in cryptocurrency type game assets. They see money there as well, NFTs, all that stuff. So they're going after money. But let's hope they deliver some quality games along the way. So one of the first announcements is a brand new entry in the mainline Silent Hill game series, and that's called Silent Hill F. Not a lot has been said about it, but that the story is going to be set in 1960s Japan, and there were some really creepy things said. If people don't like tryptophobia, I don't recommend you watching the trailer, but if you don't like it, maybe it's a chance for you to get over it. Who knows? Some of the bigger and more recent news that was announced, bigger news and news that will probably be seen for gamers to play sometime soon. The Bloober team, who I believe is behind the horror game The Medium, is now working on Silent Hill 2, the remake. So Silent Hill 2, from what I understand, a beloved game in the Silent Hill franchise. People are quite ecstatic about this. Some people aren't, because some people don't like Bloober Team. I don't know enough about why they don't like Bloober Team to have an opinion on it. I just know Bloober Team sounds, it's a really fun word to say, Bloober Team. And the game looks gorgeous, and so we'll see what happens. The game's being made in Unreal Engine 5, so it should be a visual stunner. It should be very pleasing upon the eyes. So yeah, Silent Hill 2 remake, Silent Hill F, and a more cryptic, confusing reveal is a game called Silent Hill Townfall. So all we know right now is that a combination of studios, No Code Studios under Annapurna, which Annapurna makes great stuff, is working on this. And that's really all we know right now. It's a very short clip release, and people don't really know what kind of game it is. If it's a full-scale 3D game, if it's a potential first-person game, there's all kinds of rumors going around. But anything Annapurna touches tends to be pretty good. Annapurna, for those who don't know, is both a film and game studio. People that are from the Annapurna film side have made extremely successful or award-winning game movies like Zero Dark 30 and The Hurt Locker and all that stuff, people associated with it. So Kentucky Route Zero being a game that they made that is pretty much renowned as a great story-driven kind of RPG in that classical sense. excuse me, like a Escape from Monkey Island type game. So yeah, anytime I see Annapurna on something, I'm curious for sure. So another, well, this isn't really a game, is it? And yeah, it's called Silent Hill Ascension. It's being described as a real-time interactive event where fans can control the story, and it's a collaboration between Genvid Entertainment, J.J. Abrams' Bad Robot Games, and Behavior Interactive of Dead by Daylight fame, and DJ2 Entertainment. Again, this is all from Game Rant, an article on what happened there. It really didn't show much in the trailer. People were wondering, this article here conjectures, is it something like Twitch plays Pokemon or something like that? And or something different like Black Mirror Bandersnatch, if it leans heavily into the more film-like game. Who knows? But I do want to say this, is that whenever it was announced that there might be a Silent Hill event coming up, Elijah Wood, Frodo Baggins, also major gamer, seemed to suggest that he was either just extremely excited to see some stuff about Silent Hill, or he might have some involvement in something Silent Hill related. I know he had a game company, released a game about a year or two ago. I don't know what it did. I think William Dafoe might have been in it as well. I don't think it went off to any big affair or anything like that. So yeah, this could be like a ARG, an alternate reality game, which, J.J. Abrams does a good job at. Among things he does good, that's one of them. Doesn't finish his stories off strong though, and I'll leave it at that. And lastly, a new movie had a trailer, Return to Silent Hill. The story is based on Silent Hill 2, and it's a film adaptation of it. And that's really all to really say at the moment if you haven't seen the trailer. There was one Silent Hill movie already. It came out in the early 2000s. Ironically, it wasn't, from what I understand, that much based on the Silent Hill games. It was kind of based on the Silent Hill games, but also based on its own thing in a way. And it was actually shot in my home state of Pennsylvania. And a lot of it was based on a town of Pennsylvania called Centralia, PA, where a anthracite mine caught on fire in the early 1900s and has been perpetually burning since. And the entire town has had to evacuate because the ground collapsed. So if you've ever seen that movie, all that smoke coming out of the ground, that's all very real. In fact, there's an entire town that is now emptied and has lost its zip code because of the tragedy of that mine catching on fire all those decades ago. So, big news for Silent Hill fans. I'm not familiar with the franchise enough to say I am excited about this in any way, one way or the other. But, I'm excited to see Konami making games, because to me, that gives me hope that they might make a Castlevania game. A little Castlevania sequel, kind of similar to Lords of the Shadow, but a little bit better. Maybe we get some more Castlevania in the style of Metroid. I'm just saying, I wouldn't be upset if we got something like that. And I'll leave it at that. And finally, the last big showcase of gaming news. This week, Thursday, yesterday, there was a Resident Evil showcase. So, some new news with Resident Evil. A new trailer for the Winners expansion, which is for Resident Evil Village. Resident Evil 8 was shown. So that's coming out, expects to be out October 28th for all major platforms. So if you're looking forward to that, check it out soon. Along with that, another trailer and update for Resident Evil Reverse, which is a multiplayer shooter for people that have Resident Evil Village, a cross-platform multiplayer shooter. And the early access period is going to be starting October 24th. This has already been announced. It's been on the works for a while. So keep your eyes out for it if you're looking for that type of game. Something else that was already said, they're bringing a lot of the past games, Resident Evil Remake, Resident Evil 2 Remake, Resident Evil 2 and 3 Remake, and Resident Evil 7 and 8 are coming to cloud on the Switch. I'm not a cloud gamer, but people are. And I'm, one day curious to get into the numbers about what this actually looks like from a, success adoption rate perspective, how many people are doing it. And then they finally showed some new gameplay footage of Resident Evil 4 Remake, and people seem to be pretty excited about it. It seems to be both faithful to what the original game was, while also giving you a real gorgeous updating of what people will argue is a critical game in gaming history. Resident Evil 4 is not a game I played when it came out, but I remember when it came out. because there was a giant chainsaw controller for the GameCube, and everyone was crazy about it. I've played it a bit since then, but I kind of got into it later whenever Resident Evil 2 Remake came out, and when I kind of heard them, 4 might be down the roads. I want it. So yeah, I think this game is going to sell well. I think that they're going to update it in ways that make sense for modern game palettes, and I can't imagine people are going to be disappointed by it. So yeah, that is it. So that's all the news for this week's episode of Game Bites. Again, you can catch this VOD uploaded on YouTube by tomorrow. New podcast episode will be uploaded to Apple Podcast and Spotify Podcast as Game Bites. You will be able to enter our contest that we're running this month to win a copy of either Pokemon Scarlet or Pokemon Violet. If you do exclamation contest while you're in Twitch now, or if you're on YouTube, the link in the description below, or if you're on Apple or Spotify, the link in the podcast episode as well. Go ahead and copy and paste that, paste in your browser, and enter away. Again, that contest goes until November 18th, so you'll hear me talking about it for quite a long time. I hope you all had a wonderful, wonderful week with this weekly gaming snack. I'm taking that, K-Max. I'm taking that. I don't know why I'm doing that. All right, peace. I'm going to go have some raviolis. Is that stereotypical? Maybe, but I'm going to love it. I'm going to have fun. I'll be back tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. on Twitch with some Star Wars The Old Republic gameplay continuation. I'll catch you then.